The agenda for today is that we're going to cover the practicalities on field of investigations and cyber crimes, which is a very complex area. And Samir sir has been doing this for a couple of decades now, and he's one person who Arvind sir has managed to get on our platform after a couple of weeks. So we all are excited about it. And without talking much, I'll just share the link of the cyber law course in the chat. You guys check that out. In the meantime, Arvind sir, I'll request you to introduce Samir sir, and then we can start with the webinar.
Sure. Thank you so very much, Raghav, for chipping in and for the lovely introduction. Samir, as Raghav was saying, has been a veteran in this field. He's someone that I've looked up to in the last 4 or 5 years that I've known him. He's been kind enough to share the vast pool of knowledge that he has. He's an absolute expert in forensic investigations and anything to do with tech. And I've relied on him immensely in the past to do a lot of the work that I do and understand tech from a technical standpoint as to what the workings of technology are and how that interplays with the law, and especially how that is meant to be sort of played out in the real world, right? And utilization of technology and its interplay, and how we present to court, how we interact with law enforcement. These are all complex, issues that we've dealt with in the course of our course that we've been running on cyberspace law. Samir, as I said, is just an absolute delight to work with. We've had many occasions to sort of interact in the past, and I just hope and wish that we continue this association, because I tend to learn a lot every time that I interact with him. And the only reason why we were sort of successful in the multiple raids that we did in the past is because of the work that was put in by Samir and his team, and I'm extremely grateful for all the learnings, and will look to learn more from him. Without further ado, I will pass on the baton to Samir to take this from here, and extremely grateful that he's taken out his time to sort of be here with us and share his knowledge. Thanks, Samir.
Thank you, Arvind. This is a mega introduction, which puts a lot of burden on me. So I'll do my best, ladies and gentlemen. And please, this is a pretty small gathering. So be a little interactive. If you're not, on the mic, you can sort of give me feedback, by putting in, say, a few comments in the chat, or I might, sort of ask a question. And if you guys can, hear me, and if you are sort of, if what I'm saying is making sense, please do chime in. Yes, making sense, or you're, totally off the pitch, and please come back, or something like that, so that, we can all get some value out of this. So let's get started, shall we? Now, this is where, the interaction part starts, and you type in yes in the chat box.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I'll keep doing that on mic, sir.
All right, perfect. Also, if there's, and everybody can hear us loud and clear, so please, type loud and clear so that we can feel the energy flow. Because in a live interaction, what happens is that you're talking to people, you can, see their faces, you can hear them, and you know that, there's something going on. Here, you're talking to a screen. So that's a little bit of a problem. But
guys,
yes.
Please use the chat box, guys.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Suraj Srimali. Mr. Vasu, thank you so much. Mr. Kaushik, thank you. All right, so let's get started. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so if you can see my screen, I'll be grateful if you sort of say yes.
Yes, we can see your screen, Samir.
Perfect. Excellent. Good. So we are going to be, talking for about Raghav, you might want to enable, admit all into the chat room or something into the room, because every time somebody joins, that goes thing, there's a little ping and a sound.
Sir, I'll have to keep doing that. I'll keep doing that because I cannot remove the waiting room because we don't have a password on this meeting.
Okay. Also, if you can disable the sound, then in that case.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. So perfect. Thank you very much. All right. With your permission, before I begin, let me just introduce my company. Our company is called Forensics Guru. We've been around for a long time. In fact, we were set up in 1999. We're the pioneers of this industry. We're sort of the granddaddies of this industry. And we are headquartered out of Delhi, though our main operations is from Faridabad. And we have a number of products, services, solutions that we work on. So that's the basic background. We've been doing this for a long time, as you can see. And, PM, Mr. Narendra Modi has always been a great fan of forensics. Right from his Gujarat CM days, he's always been, focusing on pushing forensics forward. And I think largely it is because of his impetus that, India has moved forward on the forensics map globally as well. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And everybody else is following his cue, and you will see, this is, Mr. Rajnath Singh, and of course, Dr. Kiran Bedi, Mr. Pandey, a lot of people. So, what happens is that digital forensics has become the darling of a lot of people. People have begun to realize its importance, its efficacy, its usage, and to the point that they have now understood that it has become a must-have and essential. So when we are talking about any kind of investigation, and any investigation, whether it is a normal investigation or it is a cyber crime, there has to be some sort of a digital investigation element in it. Now, when I say a normal crime, can have a digital investigation element in it. But there was a point when it could have, but these days every crime has, in no uncertain terms, a digital investigation element in it. So, these are aspects that we will all look at, we will understand, we will, see what is done, how it is done, what are the things that happen, and things like that, right? As I mentioned, we've been around for a long time. So, we've done work with a lot of people. The United Nations Development Program is one of them. And this is a story I like to share, and this will give you an insight into the digital investigation aspects and the wide gamut of things that come into this forensics area. In the December of 2007, for those of you who are, carbon dated like me, would remember that in 2007 December, there was a very major assassination in our neighborhood. Benazir Bhutto, who was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, she had been, assassinated, and everybody, of course, in India was very much interested. Everybody wondered what happened, who did it, and what was it in connection with, and things like that. So interestingly enough, a number of very senior people from the Ministry of External Affairs and the Defense and all that, they got emails which said that, the subject of the email was the real story of how Benazir Bhutto was killed. Now, how many people do you think, how many would have clicked on that?
All of them.
Absolutely, a lot of people, now essentially what happened was that when they clicked on it, they got infected. And when they got infected, their systems began to leak like a sieve, and information began to flow out. Now, this became a matter of concern, and an investigation was launched. And when they launched the investigation, they roped us in to sort of help them in identifying what was going on. So we helped them in identifying what was going on, and it was a specialized malware which had been built for this, and that had Chinese attribution. So it was something that we did in those early days, and this is one of the aspects of a digital investigation where, the cyber aspect is coming into play. But then if you recall, I had mentioned that it is not just the cyber, it is also normal crimes. So let's look at, this is a situation, which was related to a kidnapping case. And interestingly enough, what happened was that we had to use digital investigation techniques where we analyzed cell phone tower dumps and things like that to help recover a kidnapped person, and also 1 crore and 38 lakhs, which were the ransom which was collected, or part of the ransom which had been collected. So again, this was a very interesting case which was cracked using technology. So as you see, and you're all probably aware, that digital investigations, computer forensics form a very large part of any kind of investigation. And then one other aspect is that we are, I just gave an example of crime investigation. I gave you an example of a government, data, leakage and malware investigation. But this is extremely widespread in the corporate world as well. What we see essentially is that when we are looking at, say, a corporate environment, the corporates are now, sort of on a behind a glass screen, so to speak. They are, with focus light shining on them, especially after this new announcement where within 6 hours they are required to report a security incident to the CERT, CERT of India. This is a matter of, grave concern for everybody involved, where you will find that the corporates are have to follow a certain number of guidelines. They need to have, logging enabled. They need to have, a person who's responsible, whose job is to do that. And there's so many factors here now. Now, when you're looking at such, say, stringent or laws, which is required also from a particular perspective, but from a corporate's perspective, this may not be what I would call an ideal outcome, where, some of the people that we worked with in the past have had this major issue that, oh, we've had a ransomware attack, but should we announce it to the world? What will it do to our, credibility? Is the world going to be concerned about their data leak? Even if we say that their data has not leaked, will it have leaked? The ransomware actor is, threatening to leak the data. They have encrypted our, systems, and they say that they have stolen the data, and that data that they have stolen, they are planning to put it on the web. Now, have they actually stolen data? How much data have they exfiltrated? Is that data out there on the web? Is it already leaked? Are they going to leak it? What is their credibility? Will they sort of take the money and shut up, or will they, take the money and still, publicize? Or can we actually pay them money? Is it legal? And can we negotiate with them? Or can we, not pay them the money? Or is it an internal breach? Or is there somebody in the organization who has let this out? There are so many questions that are out there, and a lot of these are addressed using digital forensics. A lot of them are used, using online investigations and digital investigations and things like that. So there are, as I would say, a number of issues, and not just that. Very interestingly, there has surfaced, and not on the deep web, not on the dark web, but on the surface web, advertisements where people are trying to recruit insiders. They even call it, insiders, looking for insiders working in the following companies who are willing to provide us information. They're very blunt. You'll find this on Telegram channels. You will find this on, you'll find this on, the web. You will find this on, classifieds and bulletin boards. So as Arvind says, that they have put a lot of pressure due to the timelines now. And the criminals are getting aggressive. They are becoming blatant. They are advertising for insiders who are working inside organizations, and they will, pay them money. They're offering both. They're saying, this can be done on a pro bono basis if you like, or we are also happy to pay you for it. So, the situation is becoming a little dire from that perspective. But again, all of these require the digital investigation skills and abilities. These are some of our customers, people we have worked with. We have worked with all the 2-letter, 3-letter, 4-letter agencies, all the 3 defense forces, all the police forces throughout the country, and 7 out of the 10 union territories, rather 8. We recently did some work with Ladakh, so that makes 8 out of the 10. And we worked with people like SEBI, with CERTIN, with Ministry of Home Affairs. In fact, all the certs, Army, Navy, Air Force certs are all our customers. The Big Four also are our customers. So we've won a number of awards along the way. Being in business since 1999, we've been doing a lot of stuff. So we're also a NASSCOM emerged company, which is a good thing. And there's a little bit about me. We won't talk too much about that. I have a nice upcoming book, which is called Finding Needles in a Billion Haystacks. This is, when it's published, we'll talk about it. There's some good stuff people say, so we'll leave it at that. Now, let me just give you a little bit of a police perspective. And investigations are not just police, I just sort of mentioned it, but I'll tell you how a police officer thinks about a crime investigation. The first, the major areas of investigation that law enforcement will look at, and this is going to differ dramatically from a corporate environment, is that they will say that, all right, we want to, an investigation can be solved. And law enforcement also has other things, they have pressure, they have time, the kind of time pressures they have, and the publicity issues that they're concerned with are things that they have to worry about. So these are some of the areas that they will focus on first. So they always go for, cell phone, CDR, IPDR, tower dump kind of analysis. Then there is multimedia evidence, which is CCTV, audio and video kind of analysis. And there is social media evidence. Then it will be followed up by a conventional, hard drive and mobile forensics, network forensics, and stuff like that. All that will come later. So all that comes, adds on slowly. However, this is I would call as the 3 cornerstones of the initial I will not say go to market, but go to investigation process that law enforcement tends to follow. Any questions so far? Is everybody with me? Are you able to sort of hear me? Am I making any sense?
Sir, you're properly audible. I have received just 2 questions as of now. We can continue, or we can address them first and then we can continue.
Either way, I mean, if the questions are, or they can be kept to the end as well, I mean,
we can keep them. We can keep them.
Okay, perfect. So long as people can hear me, and so long as I mean, the message is getting across. I'm not diverging too much from the topic. It's making sense. Everything is fine.
Audible, sir. We are having fun.
All right, perfect, good. Okay, good. So let's proceed further then. There are a lot of digital forensic tools out there, and I will start with what is called the digital evidence seizure kit. What normally happens is that when we are talking about hello, what's happening? There's some magic happening here. Give me a minute. All right, let me start with, you remember I said that, one of the 3 cornerstones is the cell site analyzer, is the, CDR, IPDR, etc. So when any investigation happens, the law enforcement wants to identify who were the people who are present at the scene of the crime at the time of the crime. Now, this can be used in multiple ways. You may want to identify who are the people who are going to be present when you're going to carry out a raid. So at a similar time, at a different thing, you can actually do an analysis to identify who are the people who are usually present at that time. And if that person who is your target, is that person usually there in that tower at that time, you can do a behavioral analysis and then carry out the raid to catch hold of the kingpin, the big shot, or whatever. That is one of the ways to go about it. But before you can identify which is the tower that covers that particular area, because you want to approach the service providers and request for a CDR or a tower dump or a IPDR dump or whatever, you need to, step one, identify what are the towers that cover that area. So suppose we have, say, a place where there is, a copyright infringement going on, where, people are creating pirated copies of, say, software which they are selling, for example. Just giving you an example for sake of discussion. Now, at that particular location, there are a number of people who are present, and you would like to identify who are the people who are present when this process is going on. Now, to identify who are the people present at that location, you need to identify which are the cell phones that are present at that location. To identify which are the cell phones that are present in that location, you need to identify which are the cell towers that cover that location. So the cell towers that cover that location can be identified using something called a cell site analyzer, which is, what you see here on the top right. There's a picture which calls CSA, cell site analyzer. All you have to do is, take it to the location and press a few buttons. It will scan all the networks that are available, and it will give you a list of what are the towers that cover that location. Now, interestingly enough, most people will say that, oh, you can ask the service provider, you can ask Airtel, you can ask Vodafone, you can ask Jio or whatever, to what are the towers that cover that location. My answer is yes, you can ask them. Yes, they will tell you, but they may not necessarily be correct. And the ground reality is that cell tower coverage is not a function of geographical proximity. It is a function of signal strength at that particular location, which is further a function of things like, the number of buildings that are there, the density of population at that time, the weather conditions, the foliage, the plants that are growing, and things like that. Let me give you an example which will, make this crystal clear in your mind. Say you've gone to, say, Varanasi, for example, and you're generally walking around and you have a phone, that connects to Airtel. You dial a number, it goes to the nearest tower, and the call goes through. Now, that is because at that particular point of time, there are not more than, maybe 100 odd people who are making a call. But what happens if you are there at the time of the Kumbh Mela, where there are, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who are all trying to make calls at the same time? In a situation like that, all the calls are sort of, rushing towards the same towers and are unable to connect. So a tower that, the service provider says is present at the scene of the crime may not be the tower that actually covers it. It could be the next nearest tower, or another tower, or some other tower which has got a great line of sight and no obstruction en route, which may actually be very far away. I mean, there was a particular investigation I was involved in Goa where, we were getting towers from across the Mandovi River, and the investigation was happening on this side, and there was a tower which was pretty far away, and we were connecting to that signal. So in such a scenario, what was happening was that if we had ignored that, we would have found that we would not have caught the criminal. So this is an example of using a device to identify what are the actual towers that cover the location. Now, if you come across a case where this effort has not been done, the cell sites have not been identified, that gives you a lacuna, from a defense perspective, that look, where is this issue? Why has this not been done? Why have you not bothered to identify what are the cell towers that cover this area? You just ask the service provider, is that correct? In fact, in a number of cases internationally, we have seen that defense have totally overthrown the prosecution's case in that scenario where they have done a cell site analysis of that area and said that the tower that you're talking about doesn't even cover this, or the tower that you say this person was present in is also coverage certain areas which he could have been in another location. So taking a tower dump and placing him at the scene of the crime may or may not be correct. So there are factors, there are, as we say, wheels within wheels. So these are certain things that one must keep in mind, and a proper cell site identification needs to be done. So this is the first step, when anybody lands up at the crime scene, that of course, other than the usual, capture the crime scene, prevent people from going in and all those things, other than that, gathering the local evidence, the evidence that is out there on the networks is something that needs to be looked at. Number one. Now that is something that needs to be analyzed. So let's talk about the magnitude of the problem. You all have heard of tower dumps. You all have heard of CDRs. CDR is the call detail records of an individual, a suspect. A tower dump are every call that has come or which has been made or received, or any kind of communication that has happened in a particular cell tower. And of course, there has to be a framework of the time, start time and end time, or start date, start time, end date, end time kind of a thing, so that the number crunching, the big data analysis can be done, and that gives an insight into the kind of numbers that are present there. Now, just to give you an idea, take the example of that. Long ago we had a series of bomb blasts all over the city, multiple cities actually, and in Delhi, there was Sarojini Nagar, Lajpat Nagar, and places like that. Some of you may remember that. The volume in those days where cell phones were not so many, the volume of cell phone calls around that time of the blast alone was in crores, tens of crores. And because we were getting this data from multiple towers, it was a big data problem. We were actually, seeing, and since our cell site enumeration or identification systems were not so efficient, we were trying to get, we were clutching at every possible straw or every possible tower, which could cover it. So all that really made it a very big data problem. So when you are carrying out analysis, it is something that has to be done with care, with effectiveness, and at the end, it needs to be corroborated with evidence on the ground. It needs to be correlated with other information, and only then can you go to the next step of producing it as digital evidence. Of course, there are a lot of aspects, section 65B and this and that. All those are totally required, and of course they are there, but they're not part of the area that I'm talking about. So let's talk about the kind of data that we can get from telecom analysis. In fact, one other thing to understand is that in India, we are very good at telecom analysis. A lot of people underestimate us. I was speaking at a conference in New York. This was, in Washington, DC. And, when I finished my session, nobody asked me any questions. It was very, this thing. And I thought, probably people didn't understand me or didn't understand my accent, or what I'm talking about was too basic for them, or I don't know what. So I, finished it. I got off the dais. I stepped outside, and half of the room emptied. They all came outside with me. And that is where they gathered around me and they began to ask questions. There was another session going on inside. And they said, where are you from? I said, look, I announced it in this thing. I'm from India. So I was talking about, case studies from the Indian subcontinent and things like that. So they said, look, how come that India has developed, such high technology, such high capability in this area? And I said, look, we are a country of 1.2 billion people, and we have 900 million cell phones. This was a while ago, so the figures are dated, population, the cell phone, and things like that. And out of that, the cost of making a call is equivalent to 1/100th of a cent. So everybody and their dog has a cell phone, and most of us have two. And every cell phone that is there is present at the scene of the crime, whether it is being used by the person to make a call or send a message, or whether it is being used by the phone itself to communicate by sending information to Google or to the Apple Vault or to whatever, or it is actually using the internet for communication. So cell phones are really ubiquitous. They are everywhere, and they are actually providing rather sending out information all the time, even to the extent that when you browse using a cell phone, what happens is that there are so many cookies that are there are so many ad data that is being collected, that the ad awareness of these sites like Google and Facebook, etc., give a lot of locational data, and this kind of information is out there. It only needs to be harvested or harnessed from an analysis perspective. So it's scary. Now, what happens is that we built a framework, and like I was talking about the US thing, I said, look, guys, in India, we don't have fingerprint databases, we don't have facial databases, we don't have DNA databases, we don't have ballistic databases that are nationwide. And we can simply put this thing into our database and we can say, hey, this is a picture of this guy, and bang, like they show in the movies, there's this chap, facial hit, 96%. This is so-and-so, man, arrest him. Last known location, and bang, the last known location, somebody goes there and they catch him. Things are not so easy, In India, with our kind of population, we are actually very dependent from an investigation perspective on this technical data or telecom data. And to be able to locate, a person in 1.2 billion people is like looking for a needle in a billion haystacks, which is why the title of my upcoming book is A Needle in a Billion Haystacks. So the thing is that we have to understand that we had to get good, and we had to not just good, we had to get damn good. So that is what it was all about. And that is what I was saying, that in India, we are actually very good at telecom data analysis and investigation. Yeah, hi Arvind. Yes, you raised your hand.
Yeah. I just wanted to add here the reason why what Samir is saying, and it plays a very, very crucial part, is I'll give you an example. So in England, the security systems are so advanced that it is claimed that a single person is caught on CCTV at least 250 times a day, which is why they are able to do the facial recognition analysis, because of the data that they have from that standpoint. And I just wanted to add, because of what you mentioned right now. Thanks, Samir.
Thank you for adding that. That actually buttresses my case and also conveys this very fact that these guys, they have a lot of technology to depend upon, and unfortunately we don't have that kind of technology. Well, it's beginning to happen now, but yes, we didn't have it, and we still don't have it to that extent. So thank you for that, Arvind. Much appreciated. Okay, so we had to develop that kind of technology, and now we have a lot of capabilities here in India, which a lot of countries are rather way behind in the investigative end, when it comes to this. Okay, so some of the sources of data are CDRs, which are the call detail records. There are tower dumps, there are IPDRs, there are ISDs, there are gateways, there are actual forensic extraction from mobile phones that we've got, which is put in seized phones data is also analyzed in conjunction with the CDR and correlated. So that also gives an additional insight and input. And then there is SDR imports, the subscriber detail records, which can also be analyzed. And all of this puts things together to produce, the kind of output that we need, which we call, the Alibi network. And the Alibi is a framework, rather, not a network, which I call the Alibi Framework. I actually coined this term. And A is for associates. This data helps you identify who are the associates of a suspect, because you make a call, and we joke, that if we look at somebody's CDR, we can tell who is this guy's wife and who is his girlfriend, So we say that from his wife, he gets these short calls, which short duration calls and multiple calls during the day. And to his girlfriend, he has this long chat, where he's talking for a long time. And maybe it's, once or twice in a day. So what this actually gets across is that we can understand the characteristics of the associates, the relationship with associates from this. So from the Alibi Framework, the A is for associates. The L is for locations. Because your phone connects to a cell tower, it is giving its location away to a certain extent. the high-end towers like 4G, etc., and Geo and all, and your Airtel LBS location-based services and things, they give or they provide a location with a higher level of accuracy. Plus, in addition to that, with 5G being rolled out, you are going to see even better accuracy of identifying a location of a suspect. So there we see the ALI is for identity. So identity is accessed in numerous ways. So let's talk about when a subscriber goes and buys a phone, what they're doing is they are getting a phone or rather a SIM on the basis of some identity documents. So those form part of what we call a CAF, a customer application form. And these which form a part of the CAFs is, maybe it could be an Aadhaar, it could be a PAN, it could be anything. So these are identity documents. But however, in the case of criminals, in the case of suspects, they may not be genuine. So when we are doing a CDR, IPDR, or whatever analysis, we are also looking at a number of other things. Like if somebody is, say, using IRCTC to book a ticket, that helps us in establishing a person's identity. If somebody is using, say, ordering a pizza online, and Domino's is delivering to the person's location, it helps identify the person's location. If somebody is using Ola, Uber, and booking this thing, it helps identify the person's location, the person's payment methods. It helps identify the person's identity as well. So all this is something which is very insightful if analyzed correctly. Then in addition to this, we talk about something called behavior. ALIB. B is for behavior. Behavior is the pattern of life of a person. Yeah, Gaurav. Sorry.
Sir,
yeah.
Your screen is not available. It's a blank screen.
Okay.
Can you check it?
Yeah. Okay. Give me a minute.
Right. We can see it now. Right. So thank you.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. One sec. Number of chats here which I have to look at. Sorry, I'll come to the questions a little later. Okay, Ms. Charu Divya, I'll just get.
Sir, I'm noting all the questions. We'll take them at the end of the session.
Yeah, so there's a good question and actually very relevant, and I will explain how it is done, but it can be done. All right, so coming back to the behavior part, so we analyze the behavior and we see, all right, every Sunday this gentleman is found on the golf course, the Delhi Golf Club at 6 a.m. right? So that is a behavior. It's a pattern of life, or on every Friday evening, this person is found at a particular hotel, or this on every 15th of August or a long weekend, this person is found going to a particular farm or whatever. So this kind of things gives us insights into the behavior of people based on the CDRs and the other telecom log analysis kind of thing. And the last is intent. In a number of cases, you can analyze the data that is there and it gives you an insight into the intent of a person. For example, if you want to say that this crime was premeditated, then say a kidnapping was premeditated. When you analyze a person's CDRs, for example, or whatever, you find that this person visited the potential area from where the kidnapping was done a number of times in the past to do a recce and identify what is the security, what is the way to do it, what is the route to follow, and things like that. That's a great example of showing intent, right? So these kind of things actually help to analyze a lot of things more than what we talk about when it comes to simple CDR analysis and what we hear about, because the game is upped all the time. We're constantly upping the game, and the criminals also always learn. So it is an ongoing process, and it is important that everybody understands, in this ecosystem, that the number of things that are possible are huge, and some of the facets are not used. They may help, convict a client, or they may help, exonerate a client. You never know. So these are aspects that need to be studied, need to be understood, need to be analyzed. All right, so there's a small video I will share with you. I hope my sound is shared. Give me a minute. Yes, it is. Okay, I'll just play this. All right, so it's unable to play it, so there might be an issue. So I will play it later separately. Okay, so continuing on this, what are the major issues that come up? Is that data or CDRs could be based on just a mobile number. They could be based on an IMEI, because when somebody actually changes their SIM, the IMEI, which is the unique identification number of a phone, remains constant, and that can be used, to identify the user. So an IMEI scan could be done, or a tower of mass scan could be done. ISD gateway dumps could be analyzed. Subscriber data could be analyzed, and mobile forensic extraction could be analyzed, and the data that you get would probably be in multiple sources of this. I remember we used to get these Unix dumps, separated by pipes, and they would come inside a hard drive, because it would not fit on a CD. There used to be CDs in those days. Even DVDs get filled up, and it would be huge amounts of data in text format. And just to analyze that is actually hunting for a needle in a billion haystacks. So this is, just an example of what are the kind of things that need to be done to analyze it and then produce some intelligible information. So what normally happens is that, say we are analyzing a suspect. I'll give you a small example. I look at the person. He is, say, based in UP East, the telephone number, and I analyze the person's data, and I find all his calls are mostly with people in UP East. So I know, this guy is a small-time criminal. He's only talking to people in UP East. But I see another person who is also based in UP East, and this gentleman is talking not to just UP East. He's also talking to people in UP West. He's talking to people in Rajasthan. He's talking to people in Haryana. He's talking to people in Gujarat. He's talking to people in Madhya Pradesh. And you suddenly feel, boss, this guy is actually at a bigger scale of operations. He's got better connections, and this is a person that is not to be trifled with, in the sense that he is maybe part of an interstate gang, for example. Or you're analyzing somebody's phone, the CDR, and you look at the connections and you say, oh, this guy is getting talking to people in Burma, in Thailand, in say Mizoram, in Assam, in Nepal. He's talking to people in Pakistan. He's talking to people in New York, in Colombia, and you say, boss, NDPS case hai ye. He's a drug dealer. So you are able to get a insight into a person just by looking at a person's CDR. So that is of course it is profiling in a manner of speaking, and it has to be looked at because this is secondary evidence, but it gives you an insight into what direction your investigation should take, or what are the things you need to look at. There are a lot of ways telecom data is used. It is also used for carrying out social relationship analysis. So suppose I have a group of people, I take their data, I put it into an analysis software. CDAMS is an analysis software. I put it in, I do the analytics, and I find both of these guys don't know each other. They're not talking to each other because they don't have any connection. However, I see that they're both talking to one guy who's common. Now, this is a simple example of a common number between two suspects. Now, what happens? This third guy who's suddenly appeared on my radar might be their boss, might be their lackey, might be somebody who is, whose purpose is to, connect the two, or he might be, in a drug running case, he might be the guy who's doing the supplies, for example, or anything like that. So that is a simple example of connectivity. But when we're talking about social links analysis, you can actually put in a bunch of CDRs, do an analysis, like, you know, in these cricket and satta betting and things like that, and these fake telecom exchange rackets and stuff. What you put that data in, you can analyze and identify their relationships. You can identify their hierarchy. You can identify who is the boss, who is the second in command, who is the coordinator, who is the connector, and at the end, you know, who is the guy at the end who is doing the donkey work. So there are so many aspects that can be analyzed. So, you know, CDR analysis is not just CDR analysis. There is also the concept of geospatial analysis. For example, you know, if I suspect that there is some, you know, information leakage going on around the Ladakh border from within India going to China, for example. So I will just geofence the Ladakh border on a map, and I can use, you know, to identify all the towers in that area. And from those towers, what I will do is I will identify what are the calls going to China, right? So there are so many different ways of approaching things and analyzing things. And these give us an insight into a lot of stuff which normally you will not, you know, be able to get in a normal investigation. All right, so let's move forward. These are some things I've already discussed. And, you know, once you have multiple sources of information, you know, I just talked about CDR as a source. You can also get data from multiple sources of. Yeah, Arvind.
Hey, sorry, Samir, to interrupt again. Just wanted to quickly get some insight, and also this will benefit people on the call.
Yeah.
How does geofencing function? What is the best utilization of it, especially when you're carrying out investigation, right? And especially in the intermediary sort of world, for that matter. If you can just quickly touch upon that, I'd be grateful.
Right. For example, you know, you have a crime where you only have a location and a victim, right? For example, let us say there an ATM has been robbed, and on the, you know, somebody's broken into an ATM and stolen the money there. Sorry, you raised your hand again?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm just getting a pop-up saying I will raise his hand.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so now in this scenario, we say that, you know, somebody has broken into an ATM and stolen the cash that was stored there, right? So we only have a location.
Yeah.
Yeah, the CCTV camera did not capture anything because he was wearing one of those ski masks or whatever, you know, the monkey caps that we call monkey caps and stuff like that, and nothing was visible. And so we need more information. Now, what are we looking for? We have the only information that we have is that something happened at that location. We also know that the person had, say, certain, and I will, you know, come to the video investigation part a little later, and I will show you that as well, what can be done. But from this perspective, what we say is that we are now sort of going about blind. So here, you know, we say, all right, this gentleman was in this location. So we want to identify who were the people present in this location from a telecom perspective. So we can geofence that area. We can geofence, maybe there is a parking outside the ATM.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, there was a bike parked there. Maybe there was a car parked there. Maybe there was a truck parked there, whatever, you know, these guys came from. Then there are, say, two routes, you know, there's a ingress and there's a egress, right? So you can geofence that area as well, identify the cell towers that cover that area, get a list of all the calls that were made in that area, and then you can, because you have a CCTV which gives you the exact time when this robbery happened, the break-in happened, you can actually, you know, put in, say, 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes before and say 5 minutes after kind of a thing. And you have now a time band or range, and within that you do the analysis.
Right, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You also can do it in, sensitive areas like a nuclear plant or a naval base, a submarine stuff, and a lot of things, your Pathankot attacks, for example, so, you can geofence that area to identify who was present in that when these guys were, carrying out the shooting and stuff like that. A lot of stuff. Okay, so now what happens is that we are talking about one piece of information here, which is telecom logs, telecom data. But to get a big picture, you need more than that. I will, I actually, give a lot of examples. So I'm going to, continue on that. And what happens is that I will give you a kidnapping example, for example, where, a particular incident happened. In front of a school, a vehicle draws up. There is one guy in the vehicle, the guy opens the door. There's a kid who comes out of the school. The chap grabs the kid, throws him into the back. There is child lock and all activated, shuts the door, drives away. Now, the next day, and when he's driving away, a lot of people are, yelling, seeing, whatnot. There is one eyewitness who says that when this guy was driving away, there was a chap on a Bajaj Boxer, a blue Bajaj Boxer, who was, riding away. And I also have a blue Bajaj Boxer. So that is why I recognize the bike. And this guy, he was riding behind that, just behind the car, which was taking the kidnapped kid away. Now that you have an eyewitness report. Now, this is an additional piece of information that needs to be added to your investigation. You've got some data from telecom logs, you've got some data from, an eyewitness. And then what happens is that another eyewitness says, that guy's vehicle actually started with a HR06. The bike, the Bajaj Boxer, started with a HR06 and C or what S T something. I don't remember the rest. HR06 ST. So, what has happened is that they've got some part of the number plate, color of the motorcycle, make of the motorcycle, and a suspect, an additional suspect. Now, what do we have? We have one person who actually kidnapped the kid. We have another person who was probably a supporting guy on a bike who may have been there to, throw off traffic or slow down traffic or, just keep an eye out or whatever. Probability is that both these guys were in touch with each other over the phone. Then, the bike and the car vanished from that area. One day later, a call comes to the father of the child that, look, we have your kid, we want so much ransom. The call is traced and it lands up to coin operated phone booth, which is on the side of a highway. And because it was cold and foggy, winter months, there's nobody around there at that time. And the call was made. Now, again, additional information we've got a location from where the call was made. We've got a location. Again, this is where geofencing comes in, where you identify, you can use the cell site analyzer, identify the towers. And here, since the call was made from a landline, the landline will not provide you any additional information other than the fact that where it was located. But for the location, we will identify all the cell towers in that location, and that cell towers will give us, so early in the morning in a foggy, cold day, what are the other mobile phones which were in action at that time. So we get that information. Excuse me. Just a second, I'll just drink a little water. Sorry about that.
Sure, please take your time.
So in the meantime, guys, please use your chat box and tell us how is it going up till now. If it's good, we can use a thumbs up or good or any other comment, anything. Thanks, Charu. Shikhar sir, thank you so much. You've joined the webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Tandon. You're the best analyst. All right. I think everyone's enjoying Samir sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the oxygen. What happens is that, when there is a speaker and he's delivering a talk and there's no feedback and no eye contact and no conversation, you really don't know what is happening. So I'm happy that you people are finding this useful. So excellent. Thank you. This is like coffee, a shot of caffeine. All right. So coming back, now we have now an additional piece of information that the call was made from a particular location. So again, like I told you, cell site analyzer, identify cell towers, get tower dumps, CDAMs, analyze what are the phones present and stuff like that. Now we go on to the next stage. The the car which was used for kidnapping the kid is found abandoned along the same highway, some 60-70 kilometers away. Now let's look at it from this perspective. What is going to happen? That car which was abandoned, which means somebody drove the car to that location. If somebody drove the car to that location, somebody else went with them on another vehicle, maybe a two-wheeler, maybe that particular motorcycle, maybe something. Or if the car was abandoned on the same day, then there must be another car or a vehicle to transfer the child, things like that. So now we have an additional piece of information. So all this in any investigation, and investigation develops, it is not an instant thing. What happens is that, if we are carrying out any kind of investigation, whether it is an internal investigation, whether it's an external investigation, whether it is a criminal investigation, the kind of example that I'm giving, these sound a lot more, dramatic, but cyber crimes can be extremely dramatic as well, and with much larger consequences. So what happens here is that the situation happens that we have now got multiple sources of information coming in. Like now I gave you that example of the Bajaj Boxer. I don't remember what color I said, red maybe. The red Bajaj Boxer HR06ST, for example. So we said, all right, now for this, what needs to happen? We need to contact HR06 belongs to say Hisar or whatever. We say, all right, we contact Hisar and we say, give us the the RTO which handles this. So the RTO says, yes, this is me. So we say, all right, how many Bajaj Boxers do you have with a number beginning with this? And that guy says, say 11. How many of these are red? And he says, say 4 of them. Now we have something to look at, So this kind of information now comes in from, it is an information input which is added to our analysis. So we have multiple sources of analysis happening. I'm sorry, people will not let you be on a Sunday also. Spam calls. Right. And what happens is that, when you have multiple pieces of information coming in, you need to put it all together. You need to connect the bits and bobs. Now, doing it manually is a very difficult task. That is why you have, specialized, analytics tools like the IIMS, which allows you to take inputs, say some text-based inputs, some database-based inputs, some, you take a list of proclaimed offenders in that area who specialize in, crimes which are, under section, I think it's 364A or whatever, kidnapping for ransom or whatever. I don't remember the section. But if there is a proclaimed offender who's done this in the past, who lives somewhere in the 200-kilometer radius, it's a good idea, if you have a PO database, you access it and it will give you an idea. Oh, this chap specializes in this, And then when you see that this guy specializes in it, you find out who his associates are. And you say, oh, one of these associates has a motorcycle registered in his name, which is a Bajaj Boxer, which has this HR06 number. And that will, help you connect the pieces. That is one of the ways. The telephone calls will help you connect, the three pieces. The locations will help you connect the pieces. Suspects will help you connect the pieces. These, the insiders will help you connect the pieces. So all that information you need to get together and analyze that. And this is what the intelligence investigation thing does. And it will show you, like, we are seeing in this graph, the various links and relationships and things that have with incidents, with people, with locations and things like that. Take the example of an insurance fraud. in insurance, what is happening, say vehicle insurance, for example, you find that, a lot of, you're getting a lot of cases related to a particular kind of vehicle, say a Honda City is getting involved in a lot of accident cases, and what is happening is that when you put all that analytics into the system, put all the raw data into the system, the data throws up, hey, the witness in, 7 out of these 342 cases is the same. Is that likely? Not really. You can't have a guy witnessing 7 accidents, unless they're on the same day where he's okay, the person is a witness. But if the person is witnessing so many accidents, he's a paid witness, or he's a professional witness, or he's part of a crime ring or a crime gang or whatever. It's like when you're doing an analysis of, say, credit card fraud, and you find that, everybody who goes to one particular restaurant always gets their card cloned, then that is an indication, that restaurant, there is some, hanky-panky going on. So this is the kind of thing that helps you identify activities like that, right? Then the other thing that I wanted to, sorry, this one, yes. The actual evidence collection is an extremely crucial part of digital forensics. Digital forensics, as you know, is the science of identifying, preparing, collecting, protecting evidence, and analyzing it to identify evidence of a crime, and then presenting it in a court of law, for example. So from that perspective, if you do not get your evidence in a forensically sound manner, in a manner which is going to be acceptable in a court of law, that evidence is going to be thrown out. You will remember the good old days when people really didn't understand evidence, and law enforcement would go to the crime scene, and they will pick up the monitor and bring it and say, sir, isi pe data dikh raha tha, hum isi ko utha laye. And that is a very common occurrence. In fact, there was this case where piracy case where a lot of in those days the floppy disks were really floppy disks, those thin ones, those 5 1/4 ones. So those were the disks, and there were people who were pirating them. So a lot of copies of those were made, and they were seized. And 6 months, 8 months, 1 year down the line, when the court came, when the case came to court, and the evidence was brought to court, the constable who brought it, he brought it, on his shoulder. He had some 700-800 floppies. What he did was he had taken one of those metal needles, soothly, and he simply punched a hole through every one, and he put it through a aluminium metal ring, and he carried it on his shoulder for portability, and the evidence was destroyed. So the key is that the crucial thing is that the evidence needs to be protected, handled, transported, and the chain of custody needs to be maintained right from the place of seizure till the time it reaches a court, a forensic lab, or an investigator's desk, or wherever, till the time that the case does not reach its logical conclusion, the verdict is not passed or whatever, or the settlement is not done. The evidence needs to be maintained in pristine condition, in a manner where it is traceable, in a manner where it is preserved, where you can say that, look, there has been no change, no tampering, nothing has happened to it. So it all starts with the seizure. The first step is is the seizure. Like in any court, when you present evidence, and there is somebody who's out there, you either look at questioning the expert, or questioning the evidence result, or questioning the process. So you have an expert out there, you will question the expert's credentials, you'll question the capabilities, you'll question their history and whatnot, and otherwise you'll say, all right, the results you got, these results, how did you get it? Was the software you used genuine or pirated, or something, anything that is there? Or you will question the process. Look, when you seize the evidence, did you sort of ensure that this evidence came from this particular computer? It could have been somebody else. How can you say that it was this? How did you establish that this? And you're saying that this was seized at 6 p.m. How can you prove that it was seized at 6 p.m.? And since the time of the seizure impacts the case, because what the data on the hard drive shows that it was accessed till 8 p.m. and you're saying it was seized at 6 p.m. and things like that. So all these are small things, but when you question the process, it can actually change the direction of the case altogether, because due process for protecting the evidence has not been followed. So that's crucial. And digital evidence, as you all know, is extremely fragile. It can be changed in seconds. And to actually ensure that digital evidence is not lost, is not damaged, is a pretty big task. So one of the things that law enforcement and also corporates and all use is what we call the DESK, Digital Evidence Seizure Kit. There is also something called a DIRC, which is a Digital Incident Response Kit, which a lot of people carry around from an e-discovery and internal investigations perspective for law enforcement. But for normal policing work, what happens is that when you do a seizure, you're supposed to fill up what is called a property seizure memo. Now, if the property seizure memo is you have 2 punches with you. The punches' role is to act as witnesses. They will write, I was present at this and this is what a process followed, and they will sign off on it and things like that. So the property seizure memo needs to capture the information related to from under what section was the case, what is the property that has been seized, and where was it seized from, and from whom was it seized, who were the people present. Also, you need to capture the information related to the property itself, the distinguishing marks, the serial number, the make, model of the device that was sealed, and the hash value of the device, which will establish the contents. Now, perhaps in another session, I can spend some time on actually showing you how hash values exist and how they can get modified, and we can talk about things like hash value collisions also. But
yes, here, please, crucial.
We'll do it one of these days. But in this particular session, just to continue, what happens is that digital evidence, even after seizure, can change. And if it changes, where's your case? It's out of the window, So to ensure the fidelity of this evidence, you have to ensure that it is protected. Now, what you see here in the picture, this orange box that you see on the top left-hand corner of the digital evidence seizure kit's sticker that is there on the left side, there is what is called a Faraday bag. Now, this is a device that prevents, a mobile phone from connecting to a network. So how it works is that you will take a mobile phone, you will put it into this, and you will leave it on. Why do we leave it on? A mobile phone usually at the time of seizure is left on so that just in case there is a password or there are any other, restarting complications, by the time you take it to the lab, and the mobile phone is, say it is off, and when you power it on and you at the lab and you get some very complicated password kind of a situation, you're done. So an investigator is required as part of his standard operating procedure, and they should have a standard operating procedure. This is something that one can always ask. As per their standard operating procedure, they need to seize it and keep it live. If they have already collected the password from the suspect, great. But sometimes you can't get it. Either the suspect is not in your custody or the suspect is no more there. We had a case where we were given a laptop by a police department, and the joint commissioner called me up and said, Samir ji, aapki help chahiye. I said, sir, bataiye, what can we do? He says, isme aap dekho, is there anything of interest? I guess that is a very vague thing, He says, no, 15th August is coming up and we've seized this from a terrorist on 13th of August. आप बताइए इसमें कुछ interest का है? Now we got a perspective. I said, time to bahut kam hai, sir. Let's have a look. And we began to look at it, and we came across some password protected files which were very indicative of some very valuable information. So we said, okay, sir, we have found something, but time is very short. So I suggest that जिससे आपने laptop लिया है ना, उससे आप password ले लो. Police works in mysterious ways. They can get passwords in different ways. So so we said, password le lo, and we'll open the file. They said, Samir ji, you use your own mysterious ways and get the data out, because these guys have been killed in the encounter. So we said, all right. So then we had to third degree the laptop and build a dictionary and crack the thing, and we got the passwords, and we got a lot of very interesting inputs. But the thing is that the data, unless you actually collect information at the time of seizure, the seized information can be pretty useless. With the level of encryption that is out there, especially in high-end, say, iPhones and some Androids, for example. Sorry, just a second. Let's just pause for a second. My dogs are going berserk. Just give me a second, yeah?
That's okay. It's in the background, Samir. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, perfect. All right. So to continue, okay, so what happens is that if you do not get all the information related to the media that is being seized, you can later on have a big problem. Mobile phones are extremely difficult to crack with high-end passwords and high-end phones, especially hard drives which are encrypted by things like BitLocker are also practically uncrackable unless you have the passwords and things like that. So it becomes very complex, and so proper methodologies have to be followed, proper SOPs have to be followed, information needs to be collected, and at the time of collection and seizure, you need to get the make, model, serial number, etc. right? So in things like this, the digital evidence seizure kit, there are tablets which allow you to take a picture of the media or the device that you're seizing, and the picture will automatically OCR, optical character recognize, the make, the model, serial number, etc., and put it into the IF4 form. So that is then verified against the material that is seized, and that is when it is properly entered. Because what happens at the time of seizure or any operation or any raid, the law enforcement is actually undergoing a lot of stress. They are looking at a huge forest of data, forest of devices, forest of machines, and the scope of making errors is very high. Which is why when using correct technology, the error rates go down, and the possibility, and it is just a matter of verification. Because when you're working through the night, and I mean, look at these income tax raids, for example. When they land up at a place and they're say raiding a particular corporate, they are looking at a forest of computers. The 130 computers, 1400 computers, 3000 computers, 20,000 computers across multiple locations and things like that. So the scope of error and mistakes is very high, and that one error can actually be instrumental in, say, disallowing a particular piece of evidence, in the case, and it was not done correctly. And that evidence might be the crucial thing that swings the case in this favor or that favor, So all those things are very important, and that is why digital evidence seizure kits are part of the arsenal. Okay, so this portion I've already covered. Let's back to the video. Okay, so now what happens is that we are all aware about hash values, I'm assuming.
No, I think you'll need to explain it a little bit.
Okay.
It'll be very helpful for everybody as to what hash value is and why it's sanctimonious in many ways.
All right. So we all know what a fingerprint is, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. I was just checking if everybody's awake or not. All right. So what happens is that if we are looking at a situation where we seize a particular piece of media, and after a period of time the media changes. Like, I'll give you an example. There was this actual case where there was somebody who was creating fake police ID cards. Now it could be for multiple reasons. In this particular case, the ID cards were being made for constables. Now what was happening is that the guy, he was a small DTP desktop operator, and he was running his shop. People would come to him, यार एक कांस्टेबल का बना दो भाई ID card, वो बस में ना वो फ्री हो जाता है मेरा ट्रैवल. So students and people who were traveling extensively on Haryana Roadways buses, so they wanted an identity card. So they said, okay, ये हमारे को पुलिस का दे दो, तो डिपार्टमेंट कह के हम निकल जाएंगे. So 15 rupees that guy would charge, and he would make it. But from a police perspective, it was a problematic issue. It was a crime. People are roaming around with police identity cards.
Yeah.
So the police said, all right. So they got into action. They identified the guy. They tracked him down, and they landed up at his place. And they found that he was running a small tiny shop. He had a printer, a laminating machine, a computer, and some pirated software on it, and that's it. And, okay. So this guy, very small time player, he said, "Saab, I was just charging 15 rupees. I was doing this for my livelihood and this and that." They said, "Nothing doing. We are seizing all this." So it was a Saturday. They seized everything. They told him, "Okay, we understand that you don't have any malicious intent or anything. So Monday morning, you come to the Thana and we will talk to you." They took his ata pata, everything. They found that he was from a respectable family and he would not just run away for this thing. They said, "Okay, come." So these are the good old days, when there was a lot of leeway in the hands of the police. The guy lands up on Monday. He comes to the police thana. So the SHO asks him, "Okay, boss, हमने तेरा सीज तो कर लिया था, और तू बता कर क्या रहा था?" So he says, he asked the SHO, "Okay, you sit in front of you sit on this chair," and he sets up his computer in front of him, and he puts his webcam. He says, "Sir, आपकी photo लेनी है." मैंने कहा, "ठीक है, ले लो भाई." He takes a photo. He shows him the template that he already has for the identity cards. He pastes his photo there. He says, "क्या नाम लिखना है साहब?" ये नाम लिख दो. लिख के he saves that, and then he takes a printout and he laminates it. "Sir, ये आपका ID card." So very thrilled. Okay, we have understood what he's doing, this, that, and all that, and everything. Ultimately, the case goes to court. Now the case goes to court, and this gentleman, the DTP owner, has also progressed and learnt a lot and understood a lot. So when he goes to court, the PP says that, "Look, bhai, yeah, this is the evidence, this is the thing, this is he was doing this, and this is actually a crime, etc., etc." So guy says, "Everything is fine, sir. This is what I'm accused of. It's fine, sir. But essentially, my submission ये है कि मैं तो सब आपका देखो सीजर मेमो जो है वो तो कह रहा है 10 तारीख को सीज हुआ था, और आई वुड लाइक टू सी द कंप्यूटर. इसमें तो आप डेट्स देखो सर, 12 की है, 14 की है, 16 की है, इसके बाद की है सारी डेट्स. सो व्हाट हैज हैपेंड? सर, मैंने तो कुछ नहीं किया, ये तो बाद में इन्होंने डाला है डाटा, एंड दैट इज द एंड ऑफ द केस. In fact, the police became the defendants in the sense that, what is this? You have been tampering with the data. The seizure memo shows 10th, and you are been using it for after that. So in those days, there was nothing to protect the data from being tampered with. If anybody accessed the computer post the seizure, the data would change. Now, there are two things. First is, at the time of seizure, we need to identify and freeze the state of the hard drive so that nothing is added to it, nothing is deleted from it, and nothing is modified in that system, so that it is in a condition which is inviolate. The media content is not to be changed, And any analysis that we do from that media will perforce follow that, okay, because this is the media that has been provided and the evidence that exists has not been tampered with afterwards. It is still from the original media, and so it can be presented in a court of law. Now, how do we establish the state of a particular hard drive at a particular point of time? A computer has a hard disk. How do I establish that this is the state? Now, how do we establish the identity of a person? I'm just digressing a little bit. To establish the identity of a person, you take a person's fingerprint, you take his biometrics, right? And that biometrics, taken a few years later, you will match and say, okay, this is the same chap, okay, admit him. It's the same with computers. For computers, the data that exists, that data is a sequence of bits and bytes, right? So every zero that is there, followed by a 1 or a 0 or a 1 or a 0 or whatever, is in a particular sequence, and that sequence is unique. And that whole sequence is put through an algorithm, which we call a hash algorithm. And there are different hash algorithms. And that hash algorithm produces a result which in normal language we will call a digital fingerprint, or we call a hash value. So as long as the hash value of a hard disk has not changed from the time of seizure, the hard disk is exactly the same. The contents of the hard disks are exactly the same. So this is established science. This is court accepted science. And this is a way of establishing a chain of custody as well. So if we take at the time of seizure, the hash value of the media that we are seizing, and later on, we produce evidence from the same media, which is backed up by the same hash value as which was taken, say, 3 years, 6 years, 8 years ago, nobody can question that there has been any tampering or modification in the media, right? So that is the concept of a hash value. But, and there is always a but, digital evidence, as we mentioned, is fragile. I might accidentally delete it. I might intentionally delete it. I can easily modify a file. In fact, somebody can remotely log in and modify a file. In fact, somebody can remotely access the mobile phone and delete everything on it over the internet. When my mobile phone is stolen and I have, say, locate my mobile phone turned on, I can remotely log in into my Google account and say, wipe everything from my mobile phone, boss. Nobody is going to get access to my data. So the whole thing is that we need to ensure that the evidence that we have is fingerprinted, and also ensure that nobody can take a knife and cut their own fingerprints or anybody else's fingerprints to modify it. So we protect the digital evidence. The device that is used to protect the digital evidence is called a write protect. And this is what we are seeing. This is what is commonly known as a write blocker. It prevents writing to a digital device or a digital piece of evidence. And that helps us protect the evidence that is inside. So if there is evidence of wrongdoing, there are emails communicating some hera-fairy or some wrong stuff or whatever. And there is evidence which is, for your case or against your case or whatever. The evidence is prevented from modification using write protect devices. As long as you use a write protect device, you can see everything in the hard drive. You can open it, see it, copy it, whatever you want. But the hash value will not change because it is only a one-way process. So this is the concept of a hash value, and this is the concept of protecting your evidence, right? I hope everybody got this. If you got it, please type yes. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So let's, move forward. The thing is that, you protect the media and then you move forward Now, there are times when you don't want to work on the original media, because the more you work on it, the media may deteriorate. It may be exposed to weather conditions. There could be moisture, there could be dust. You could accidentally be, dropped. Somebody's elbow might hit it, or whatever. Anything can happen. So what we need to do is we need to look at it from a perspective where the original media is actually kept in safe custody. And that safe custody, sorry, excuse me.
Sir, please feel free to stop anytime we need to.
Just a second, please, sir.
Guys, in the meantime, if you have gathered any questions, you can write them on in the chat. I've been collecting some of the questions, and I'll note yours as well.
Right. So now, rather than working on the original, we work on a forensic copy or a forensic clone or a forensic image of the original. So at the time of seizure, this is an option, or later on when it is brought to a lab, or if you're sitting in a corporate environment in your in your incident response team's room, or wherever you want to do this, what happens is that the original hard drive is kept at one side in a write protected manner, and an additional hard drive or a target hard drive is kept, which is used for the purposes of creating what we call a forensic image. So we read from the original and we write on the target, and it could be a bit by bit copy. A forensic image and a forensic clone are a bit by bit copy. But how do you ensure it is the same? And how do you ensure it is the same in a court of law? So what we do is, again, we use that hash algorithm, and we compare after we have done the bit by bit copy, we will compare the hash values of the original and the common and the target. And we will compare the two. When the hash values are the same, we can be assured that the contents of both the hard drives is exactly the same. Correct? So the hash values are of different versions. There is something called a MD5 hash and a SHA1 hash. These, if you Google, you can simply download them, and there are software programs available which will calculate the hash value for you. Like I said, we'll do another session at a later time where we will get into these hash values in great detail, and you will find a lot of insight over there. Okay, so then we proceed further. We create an image of the original. So what happens is that we have a suspect hard drive or a suspect's hard drive. We have a device, what you see here, the LogicCube Falcon. You will create, it has got one side where it has got ports which are write protected. So we will connect that hard drive or USB drive or USB hard disk or whatever we want to connect at one side. Then we will press a couple of buttons, and on the other side, we will have an empty sanitized hard drive where we will create an image or a clone. And that we will check the hash value of the produced image or clone, and that hash value can be actually physically matched. If they match, that means the content is exactly the same, and it can be taken to a court of law. So that is what is this about. And let me see. So these are devices that do this. Now we have moved. Let's move on further. We have seized some media. We have created a clone or an image. Now we have to identify the contents inside and their relevance to our investigation. Is it admissible? Is it evidence? Is the evidence admissible? Is the evidence relevant? Is the evidence something that can be, used for our case, or is it not? There are a number of times when, the evidence that is produced is actually neither relevant and end up actually being detrimental to the case. So these are certain things that have to be looked at. Now, to do that, we use specialized software, and the world's leading software in this is a product called Encase. Yeah, see, if they've not looked at the hash value, then for this can be a bit of a problem. If the hash value has not been utilized at all throughout the case, then the case can be easily thrown out. One can, claim tampering. If people look at the case, if they're not even use the right blocker, then the date and the time of the things will change. And then, that same question, like I talked about, that fake identity card will come into play. The dates and times of the files will allow, the defense to get the case thrown out. All right. So coming to the investigation, let's, take another example. Say I am a criminal, right? On my desktop, I have a file. The name of the file is my secret land dealings.xls. You are an investigator. You are walking past my my computer, and on my desktop you see this little icon with this name, my secret land dealings.xls. What is your first response? I will explain that later, the date and time aspect in the question answer session. Okay. All right. Everybody will open it. It's an instinct. We will all tend to look at opening that file. And when we are opening that file, what will happen is that my top secret land dealings are going to be out. They're going to be leaked. And when they are leaked, what is the purpose? What is the idea behind that? So I am a smart criminal. I also see that if I leave a name like that, on my desktop, anybody is going to access it and bang, I have lost my secrecy. So what I will do is I will put a password. But then you may have password cracking tools. You may have specialized hardware, with password cracking arrays, hardware accelerated, which will, put in that force of password cracking. Or you may have a brilliant, password cracker, a person who understands the concept of biographical dictionaries and things and may build something like that, may social engineer the password and crack it. So I say password is not going to be enough. What should I do? What I do is I just rename the file. Instead of calling it my secret land dealings.xls, which is such a suggestive name, I rename it to windows.dll. And I copy it into my Windows system folder. Now, it is an Excel file. When I need it, I will go to the Windows system folder, double click, do a right click, open with Microsoft Excel, and I will work on it. I will add more secret land dealings into that. After that, I finished, I close it. That's it. Now, in any computer, there are at least 1 lakh files, maybe more. I mean, the operating system comes with files, everything. And when it is a Windows system.dll, what is going to happen? Windows will say it is a DLL file, it is a system file. You will look at a file and you will not be able to identify it. And when there are lakhs of files, how many files will you do a right click and open with? As an investigator, for you, it is torture. Correct? That is where technology comes into play. And what tools like Encase do is they will allow you to collect that data. They will allow you to decrypt the data if it is encrypted. They will allow you to process and identify the data if it is, say a hidden file, if it is a misnamed file, if it is a deleted file, if it is a encrypted file, it will classify your data. And once it has done all that, it will allow you to investigate what you want and then produce a report which you will take into the court of law. And all the while it will maintain your hashes, it will add individual file hashes, and it will ensure that the chain of custody is not damaged. And we will look at the hash value from at the start, hash value at the end, and we will say nothing has changed. But we have extracted all the relevant evidence, and this evidence is going into our report. Our report is presented in the law, and it is backed up by these chain of custody and the hash value. So it is a process, and certain steps, certain crucial steps need to be followed throughout the process to ensure that there is no slippages and your evidence remains admissible. So these are some screenshots. It shows you, like here we are looking at graphical evidence that is there. Here you're looking at deleted and overwritten data. So these are the dates and times. Any digital evidence that exists on a computer has a minimum of 3 dates and times associated with it. The first date and time is the date and time when it was created. The second date and time is the date and time when it was last accessed. Third date and time that is associated with it is the date and time when it was last modified. And each of these date and times of a file tell a very important story. If, for example, you look at a file on your computer and you right click it and you look at the properties and it shows you, that the created time of the file is after the modified time. What does it mean? We call them MAC dates: modified, accessed, created. The first was created, second is accessed, third is modified. So suppose you say that the file created time is after the modified date and time. Is that possible? Think about it logically. Date of creation is after the date of modification. You're looking at a file and it is showing that the date of modification is before the date of creation of the file. So can a file be modified before it is created?
No. It has to be created first for it to be modified.
That is logical, correct?
Yes.
So in a case, if you find a file and the date of creation of the file is after the date of modification of the file, it means something. Not what you would expect. That means that it is not a tampered file, but it just means that the file was not created on this system.
Correct.
It was created on another system, after which it was modified, and then it was copied from that system onto this one. And this copying of the file that we see here is an indication that this person is not the owner of the file, somebody else is. The file has come from somewhere. It could have been downloaded. It could have been copied from a pen drive. It may have actually come from another source. It could have been copied from a CD or some media. So we need to search for additional evidence. So this is where your forensic expert comes into play. Their understanding of the operating systems, the different versions of the operating systems, the way they respond to certain activity will actually allow you to solve, or rather present your case in a manner where the custodians of evidence, if they have not followed proper process, will be totally, it will show that this has happened, or the evidence that they're presenting as their own evidence may not actually originate from their own hard drive, and that is a quick indicator of that. So just an example, So there are other tools, that give you a lot of insights into the internet kind of evidence, people's chats, people's activities. A lot of WhatsApp is used extensively. A lot of Telegram is used extensively. A lot of, Facebook, Instagram. We are, tweeting away day and night. All this activity is happening, and each of these activities is leaving a piece of evidence. In fact, there was a very famous person. Who is the most famous detective you have heard of? Let's have this in the chat box. Can you please put it? Which is the most famous detective you have heard of in all time from history? Karamchand. Sherlock Holmes, 007. Sherlock, Vyomkesh Bakshi. Sherlock. Okay, excellent. Thank you for your inputs. Thank you for participating. Wow, Pradosh Mitter, I have not heard of him. We need to chat. Okay, so let's come back. I'm now talking on an international scale, so we'll talk about Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes was a fictional detective. Actually, he was not a real detective. He was created by somebody called Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was actually knighted because of creating Sherlock Holmes. He was given the Sir title because he created Sherlock Holmes, who was such a fantastic, popular detective, that he was well known. However, what a very less known fact is that Arthur Conan Doyle modeled this gentleman on another person who was a real existing character, who was the head of the forensic science laboratory of the Suret in France. And that person's name was Edmond Locard. And Edmond Locard was actually is being called the father of forensic science, not digital forensic science, but forensic science. And he said that anybody or anyone entering or leaving the scene of the crime either takes some piece of the evidence away with him or leaves some evidence behind. Not willingly, excuse me, inadvertently, the person will take it away or leave it behind. Exactly, it is called Locard's exchange principle. So Edmond Locard actually was first in the French army. He was a scientific investigator. So what happened in the First World War, the French, were participating on the side of the Allies, and they were in many battles with the Germans. So what happened was that the French government decided to give, the participants in the war, the dead bodies, a lot of dead guys were found, to encourage more people to join. They said that we will give everyone who has fought in the war bravely a medal, So the Legion d'Honneur, they will be given a medal. So these people, they said, okay, but how do we decide who will get a medal? So that task was given to Edmond Locard, and he followed a very simple process. He looked at the dead bodies and he found that, whoever had a bullet which had hit him from the front was given the medal, and whoever had a bullet which had hit him from the back was not given a medal and was court-martialed, post-mortem. So if it hit him from the front, they were facing the enemy. So, they said, all right, he should be given a medal. Person was hit a bullet from the back, he was running away from the enemy, so they should not be given. So that was his start of forensics, So today, any activity that you do on the internet, on your phone, on the computer, produces some kind of an artifact. So that artifact that is produced is what we analyze using these different tools. So we acquire the evidence, we create hash values, and then we will examine the evidence, your different artifacts of chat apps, your browsers, your mailboxes, your documents, your pictures, your videos, audios, whatever. And then you can review and analyze them, and then you can report, right? Then there is, of course, steganography. Then there is, of course, password cracking. Then there are things like, a lot of tools for that. network data that you collect, packets of data that flow from one place to another, and things like that. You analyze the traffic, you analyze the data, some data you can decrypt and look at, images you can recover, you analyze emails. There's so much information on emails, there's so much information on Gmails, there's so much information on free mails, and all that is, you know, something that can be analyzed. Then you can also analyze you know, different types of communications. You can produce a report about the communications. You can, you know, build a trail of communication that, you know. And what happens is that there was one particular case that came to me where, you know, there's somebody who had falsified a communication to prove his point. Now what happens, you know, they presented the email, they presented the header, they put it on a DVD and they wrote it, and, you know, they put it as part of their trail. They put it inside the PST file that we had this was there. However, the header has a lot of, you know, minute details which, when not followed correctly, will actually produce a flag, you know, which will produce a flag which will alert a forensic investigator that, okay, you know, this is a fake email. So what happens is that, oh yes, reports can run into thousands of pages. In fact, if you look at a mobile phone, with say an iPhone can have 512 gigabyte, you know, it's like a hard disk. So that is like, it can be a lot.
1 to 2 TB now.
Yeah, 1 to 2 TB now.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 TB also. So yeah, so the Sumuri, this is, you know, for Macs. You can analyze Macs and things like that. You can get data from there. Mobile phones, you can extract data from mobiles. You can, you know, triage data. You can get their chats. You can get deleted chats. You can get deleted WhatsApp. You can get photographs, messages, deleted messages, things like that. You can extract it from not just Android, Windows, but Tizen and other smartphones, Blackberries and things. You can even get it from smart TVs. You have Android TVs, you can get it from there. You can get it from data from Alexas and your, you know, hello Google kind of stuffs, voice assistants. You have CCTV cameras, you know, so data can be extracted from those internet connected CCTV cameras and IoT devices such as that. So also you can actually, you know, have damaged cell phones. You can extract the chip. You can do a chip off read from that. You can analyze that kind of data as well. You can get data, you know, from using something like phone ballistics, or you can identify that this video was made from this specific phone. You know, you can check PRNU values, which are specific values which help you identify the kind of camera which was used to make that particular photo, video, or whatever. You can also, you know, get data from Facebook, from Twitter, from Instagram, YouTube, Tumblr, web pages, website, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever, other things. You know, you can get data from all that as well. You can also, you know, search on the basis of keywords, the, you know, different tweets and things. You can do a social media analysis. You can actually look at links and, you know, the different connections between entities, who is connected to who all. You see Mark Zuckerberg is connected to, you know, I don't know, probably everybody on Facebook, for example, and things like that. You can also do, you know, analyze threats in real time. You can analyze open source intelligence. You can, you know, find out information related to geographies. You can find out relation to people's movements and things like that. So you can identify, you know, who is where, talking to whom, doing what, when, things like that. You know, you also, on networks, you can do an analysis of activity on a network. You can, you know, when malware hits a network, you can do an analysis in depth and identify, okay, this originated from this particular computer. So if there is somebody on that computer who downloaded an email, who clicked on a particular link and then got infected, you can actually trace it, you know, over a period of time, how it spread over the network and caused billions of dollars of loss and things like that. So that's it. I think I will keep it short, and I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I think I'll have to announce that this was the best session that we have ever done on NCI. And some of them have been wondering that webinar के हिसाब से बहुत ज़्यादा information हो गई है. Guys, this was a cyber law course class, इसलिए थोड़ा सा heavy था. And also, I think I have enjoyed it thoroughly. And before we move into questions, I would request everyone to please share your comments in the chat, and I can see some hands raised. We'll take those questions first, and I have some questions noted. We'll take them next. Arvind sir, anything?
A quick look on the screen, you number plate enhancement and things like that is also possible, as you can see here. These kind of things are also there. Okay, go ahead. Oh, okay, nice.
Look, I mean, I said it in the beginning of the class, and I was honestly, when Samir agreed to come and sort of speak today, which I've been sort of plotting for quite a number of months. I was super excited because I don't know if I mentioned it to Raghav or Samir. I truly felt like a kid with a $100 bill in a candy store. Because every time that I end up speaking to Samir and discussing matters, I end up learning like 10 things more than what I expected. So this is your opportunity, I believe, and to ask him as many questions as you can, because he's as I said, and it's fairly evident today, he's a completely vast pool of knowledge that can be tapped into. And what's brilliant is that he's always been willing to share it, which is a fantastic quality that I've always enjoyed my interactions with him for. And with that, I'll stop and I'll leave you guys to ask him as many questions as you can.
And I think I'll also mention that we've been learning from Arvind sir for I think like last 3 months, and understanding this session was really easy just because we have had learned so much of the basics of cyber and IT and everything, and this made it very easy. So thank you so much, Arvind sir. And I'll give the mic to Shikhar sir now first, and then we'll go with Mr. Tandon, and then we'll take the other questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Datt, for a wonderful session. I'll keep it very short and quick. Just 2 technical questions. In one of our matters, the accused switched off his mobile phone in a certain location in Rajasthan, let's say on 2nd of April. And then the accused was apprehended on 5th of April. So there was a gap of 4-5 days. Is there any way to get the location of the accused through phone once it was switched off for these 4 good days?
Okay, see, there are 2 things here. When we say phone is switched off, is it switched off the network, or is it switched off? Say, somebody's using Wi-Fi, for example. I'm using my phone and making Wi-Fi calls. So he's no longer connected to the PSTN network, is not connected to Airtel, is not connected to Voda, is not connected to any of the others. So
it's a button phone, not a smartphone, switched off, like completely switched off, power off.
Power off. Okay. So see, one of the things that people tend to do, and in this kind of an investigation, is that if the person switches off a phone in a particular area, that means that they will look at the guy's historical data and try and identify, that what are the people who he gets in touch with and who are in this area. So other parties को identify किया जाता है कि these are the people who live in this area, who stay in this area, and things like that. Then what happens is that this guy, he will have a pattern of life. He calls his wife, he calls his father, he calls his mother, whatever, you will do an analysis that, every day he calls this number multiple times. Now, if he switched off, he might be using another device doing the same thing. So one of the things that people will do is, or investigators will do, is they will look at the towers in that area where he switched off, maybe, and identify if there are some other phones that are coming live after he switches off, and which are being used for that. So I don't know the complete details of your case, things like that, but there are multiple ways and steps that can be followed, which help, identify these. But there are times when nothing is available, then nothing is available.
But technically, once the phone goes switched off, we cannot get the tower locations.
Yeah, I think Arvind will be able to help more in this because of his. Yeah.
All right. If Mr. Arvind is going to answer, or should I switch to next question?
No, please. I will need to know more facts and sort of probably go from there, because obviously with that and with what Samir will have to add, then we can probably piece something for you then and discuss it separately if you want to take it up at any point. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
Perfect. My second quick question is, if a photograph is being transferred from one phone to the other, which has been seized by the police, and after the FSL report, can the original source be identified in the FSL? Which phone is this photograph coming on? Let's say it's a screenshot of a chat. So can the original source be identified in the FSL? Which phone is it coming from?
See, if depends on how it is transferred. I was actually, testifying in a Malaysian court on this sometime back, very recently actually. If the phone has been, suppose, you use WhatsApp to transfer a picture. Now, WhatsApp is a very brutal system. They are only focused towards data transmission in a most efficient way, and they will strip the photograph of any kind of identifiable information that is there. Now, if it is not transferred using that, say suppose it is transferred using something like Bluetooth, for example, or it is attached to an email and sent, for example, and somebody using an email has downloaded it, for example. In that case, the original information, or what we call EXIF data, will exist to help you identify which is the exact phone which was used. Now, that said, there is a concept of fingerprinting of phones or cameras, so to speak. So if it has been transmitted using WhatsApp, then that fingerprinting effects are not going to be very prominent. It could be attempted. It will require a little research, but it may not work. This thing is that if it has been transferred using WhatsApp, there's a possibility that it may not work. However, if it is transferred using other ways and means, it will work, or it should work.
Thank you. Thank you, team, for the effort. Thank you, Raghav.
No problem, Dr. Well, thank you for the question. Moving on to Rajesh Tandonji. I'm giving you the mic, sir.
Well, good afternoon, sir. A wonderful session, sir. And possibly I'll fall short of the word to describe the interesting session it was. So my question is, I've already put in the chat, what about in case the law enforcement agencies, at the time when they are collecting the digital evidence, then a lot of pressure also, and maybe out of ignorance, they forget to, work out the hash value. Then what is the way out?
Way out from whose perspective?
Because possibly if the other side in the trial, the accused gets the best of the defense lawyers, they might raise the issue.
Right.
That's
so in such a scenario, if they have not done all this hash business, but have they accessed the devices before, after seizure?
After seizure, I don't think.
All right.
Before seizure, it was there.
Of course, before seizure, so they can do anything, But after seizure, if nothing has been done, then in that case, it should be actually submitted. The hard drive, if proper वो जो होता है ना, ये पंचनामा बना है proper, all the documentation इनका पूरा है, okay, hash value नहीं निकाला, कोई बात नहीं. But if they've done all that, and then they should submit it to the forensic science laboratory. Once they submit it to the forensic science laboratory, the FSL will create a hash value.
Right.
Now, the only questionable part will be from the time that they seized it till the time they gave it to the FSL, because after that FSL has got it and FSL ka hash value chalta rahega.
Fine.
Now that gap period jo hai, from the time of seizure to the time of submitting to FSL, if they can prove that, you know, we put it inside a bag, we seized it with wax and wo stamp laga ke jo inka process hota hai, they followed all that correctly, then you can actually ensure that it is admitted in a court of law.
Fine.
So I mean, it depends on the process followed. Those factors come into play.
Got it. Thanks, that answer. And my another question was, you're talking about some date and time changes. That if you could elaborate, because that time I could not follow it, which you were mentioning, sir.
See, data that exists on a computer, as I mentioned, is extremely fragile. Plus, other than data that we create, suppose I'm creating some data, I'm typing a Word file, for example, there is information created about my activity, which I call metadata, which actually the world calls metadata. I shouldn't take credit for that. But the metadata is data about data. So data is my Word file. Metadata is information related to that Word file. So what is metadata? It is, for example, who is the author of the Word file. मैंने बताया नहीं उसको verbally कि मैं हूँ author, but क्योंकि computer मेरे नाम पे registered है, it is registered in the name of Samir Datt. So Word automatically takes that name and adds it as the author of the file. So that means at least a computer with the name Samir Datt was used. That is established. It will also establish when was the file created. That is metadata. Now, then when I finish typing, I save the file. When I save the file, that is the time when the file was last saved, last modified. So wo MAC times I was mentioning, if you recall, modified, accessed and created times. So this is where that will come into play. Now, every time I modify the file, it is say I'm creating a legal draft. Every time I type in it, it will change. I worked on it yesterday and I saved it. I went to bed. फिर सुबह आज जल्दी उठा, मैंने कहा भाई इसको खत्म करना है, उठ के मैंने फिर उसमें टाइपिंग की और फिर I was going for lunch, so I saved it and I went for lunch. क्या हुआ कि when I went for lunch, I saved it. So last modified time, when I saved it, उसका हो गया. So that is why I say that dates and times change depending on how the file is used. Access, जब last access किया तो last access time होगा. जब मैंने उसको modify किया तो last modified time आ जाएगा. So that is date and time.
Thanks, Atan. When you change the file, you know, every time you work on it, file time changes and all. So the hash value will also change, I suppose.
Hash value of the file will not change. Hard disk will change, but hash value of the individual file will, yes, it will change. Sorry, every time you add data to it, it will change.
Yeah.
If you just look at the file, the hash value does not change. But it depends. If you look at it in a manner where you are using, suppose it's a text file, simple text hai, the hash value will not change. But if you are looking at it in an application where the application automatically adds data, metadata to the file, so then the hash value will change.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving on to the next question. Ayushi wants to ask, what is the range of a mobile tower, and could you show us a sample CDR and how to read the tower location, and the nodes are given and what are they and how can we use them in cross-examination?
Very, very big questions. These are like full day sessions.
I do understand, sir. We can, I think we'll pick just 2 more questions after this, then we'll close the session.
It's okay. So basically, the first thing is the tower range. Now, tower range depends on the kind of technology that is used. You know, like the 2G towers, you could have a 2G tower or the CDMA tower, if you recall, it would even go up to a range of 30 kilometers. And then, you know, the 3G, 4G began to reduce, and with 5G, you are going to get towers which will be, you know, 300 meters only. So the range of towers will increase a lot, which is why there is so much concern that because of radiation, we will get cancer and things like that. Because of that, you know, because there will be so many towers. So what is happening is that tower range depends on the type of technology. It can be anything from say 300 meters to 30 kilometers. And also, again, it depends on, the lot of factors, environmental factors also. If you have a mountain on one side, then the transmission power of your tower is, again, it is also a matter of the service provider, how much power they provide to that particular tower, and the direction in which they orient it. There is, the alpha, beta, gamma angles at which a normal tower has got 3 angles normally it works on, 120 degrees each coverage. But in certain cases, they may not require it. They have no customers on that side. So why waste money on, using that part of an antenna? So their antenna is, say, reduced, for example. So a lot of factors govern it, but that is the range. Second question was, you want to see what a CDR looks like. Let me see if I have one. I will quickly show it to you. In the meantime, what is your third question? I'd be grateful if you could repeat that, please.
Ayushi, could you?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. Actually, I had witnessed a trial in which it was argued that if the device is unable to connect to a particular tower belonging to a particular company, say I have a Geo SIM and I'm unable to connect with the Geo tower, so can it automatically get connected to some other tower, or I have to manually change it to connect it to any particular, because there is a setting, right, wherein you can manually change and connect to some other tower? And what if it...
Hello, I've suddenly lost your...
Ayush,
No,
yeah.
sir, I got unmuted by mistake.
Okay.
So what if I, if I manually connect it to some other network, and if that facility is available to me, just to dodge the police, I can connect manually to some particular other network, and then I won't be able to, then the police won't be able to identify me, right? If I have a Geo SIM and I connect it with Airtel tower. So, and if that is possible, even, can I, first thing, is it possible? And second, if I do that manually, will I get caught?
But it's very easy. It's actually very easy to catch you. And but the first thing is that you will not be able to connect directly unless, see, suppose you're using Geo. Now, if you recall, there was this concept of roaming. And when I would travel from, say, point A to point B, I'm going in a train, and you are, say, I was using Vodafone, for example, and Vodafone did not have a service in Madhya Pradesh. So it had a tie-up with Idea. So the moment my train would move from Madhya Pradesh, from say Rajasthan into Madhya Pradesh or whatever, it would change to, my phone would show that it is now connected to Idea. Now that was automatic, because that they had a interconnect agreement, and there is on every SIM, because your phone runs on a network, and the network has a SIM which drives it, and that SIM connects it to it has got something called permitted networks. There is a field called PLMN and there is a FLMN, where it says there are permitted networks and forbidden networks. And the permitted networks, it is allowed to connect to, because they have an agreement in place, that if I am using Vodafone and my Vodafone gets into an area where there is coverage from Idea, I will use the Idea network and I will pay Idea accordingly. But if it gets into an area which is BSNL, and BSNL is not going to accept my connection, it is a forbidden network, and if BSNL is there, I will not allow it. This is how your roaming works. Like if you're using Airtel and you go to Singapore, your Singtel automatically gets activated. Bill will come from Airtel, but
Okay,
because Singtel has a relationship with Airtel, so it will come into action.
Okay, sir, I understood. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. This is what a CDR looks like, by the way, on the screen. Can you see it?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes.
So this is just an example, it's calling number, call date, call time, call duration, first cell ID, last cell ID, call in type, SMMT is the basically short message mobile terminated. That means this is an incoming SMS. IMEI of A party, the party calling number, that is the IMEI of the device, which helps you identify what is the make and model of the device also. And the IMSI of A party, again, that tells you which is the service that person is using. So if it's a Airtel, it will be a different type of IMSI. If it's a, Voda, it is a different type of IMSI, and so on and so forth.
And so what is the implication of the first cell and the last cell? What is the use?
Say you're making a call, you're driving, so where you started, that is your first cell, and where you finish the call, that is the last cell.
Oh, all right.
Starting and terminating, basically.
All right. Sir, another participant, Charu, has a question. Charu, I've given you the mic. Can you ask your question?
Good afternoon, sir. So my question was, supposedly we are traveling from one place to another, and so our mobile network gets connected from one tower to another. But between the two towers, we have the point blank. Supposedly, there we don't receive any network from any previous towers or the upcoming one. So if any crime happens there, how we will deal with such situation, because we don't know on which direction the accused might have gone and taking the victim's cell phone or victim himself as well.
Yeah, good question. Sorry, yes, continue.
And yes, because the tower gets changes time to time, so it's not important that we receive the data on the network from a particular telecom telecom companies. So how we gonna deal with this?
Right. So you remember the CDR I just showed you? So in that, there was a first hour and a last hour, correct? In one particular call. So like, let us say that this person is traveling, or for a train, you were giving the example of a train and a crime occurs between two towers. There is no signal, for example. So now, A, the direction of the train is known, correct? B, the route of the train is known, it is fixed. So anybody who is on the train is traveling with the train. Now, if somebody is using, say, Vodafone, there might be a drop in the coverage of Vodafone, say, between two stations or two areas, and Airtel may have a drop in two different areas. So using a device like the cell site analyzer, if you saw that I showed you earlier, one can actually map the cell site coverage of the whole route, right? Once you have done that, if you are able to identify that this person's coverage dropped in this particular area, you are able to identify what is the company whose service he is using. Because if it drops in one particular area and that area Vodafone does not work, that means that he's using a Vodafone phone. Right? Now, next stage is that now you have a tower dump of all the Vodafone phones that are traveling on that route. Because if you take a tower in the beginning or in the middle and then are traveling on the next and so on, say 3 continuous towers, you look for common numbers, you will find that there are so many Vodafone numbers that are common in this area. Right? Now, IRCTC has a database of everybody who has booked a ticket.
Right.
So you will correlate that with that, and you will then do an analysis. So there are many different ways that a thing like this is done. It is.
And sir, what if we are traveling from a personal vehicle? Supposedly at point blank, the crime happened. Then after a certain period of time, we get the location of the particular victim's mobile phone, say in north direction. Okay, then it gets switched off. After some point of time, say a day or maybe, we get the location in somewhere in the west. Means the accused is changing the location from time to time, and we are not able to track the person. So what else can we consider in this?
You are getting the location of the victim's phone, correct?
Right.
So you will use something like what I showed, geolocation.
Right.
Like I gave you that example of that kidnapped child thing where phone call was made from a telephone booth on the road and saying, तो उसका आसपास एरिया का जब जियो लोकेशन हम लोग लेते हैं तो उस पे हम उस टाइम पे जब ये फोन एक्टिव था, आपका सपोज 15 मिनट के लिए एक्टिव था विक्टिम का फोन एक लोकेशन में, सेम टाइम में थोड़ा प्लस माइनस आगे पीछे करके आप वो एनालाइज करोगे कि भाई और कौन से फोन एक्टिव थे इन दैट एरिया। आपके पास विक्टिम के 3-4 लोकेशन अगर आपके पास आ जाते हैं तो वही 3-4 लोकेशंस में उस टाइम पे के पीरियड में आप सबका टावर डंप लेके आप एनालाइज करोगे कॉमन नंबर्स क्या हैं।
Right.
उससे आपको पता चलेगा कि भाई विक्टिम भी प्रेजेंट तो था ही, वो तो कॉमन नंबर है ही, व्हाट आर द अदर कॉमन नंबर्स प्रेजेंट इन द सेम लोकेशन। यू कैन टॉक टू मी ऑफलाइन आफ्टरवर्ड्स, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, इफ यू नीड एनी हेल्प फॉर दिस।
Surely, thank you.
वेलकम।
Sir, one last question, which I think is very important, is that police, takes very long to take cyber reports and then investigate crimes, and we are nowhere aware of what is happening, what is not. So, what can we as lawyers do, or as the aggrieved person do to get this process, speeded up, and if there's anything that we can do as lawyers?
Actually, I have my sympathies are with the police because the amount of workload they have is incredible, and they work every day of the week, including Sundays. They work during the day, they work during the night. Okay, there are a lot of problems, I understand, but still what happens is that physically they are not responsible for doing the analysis. You are catching the police, but they have handed it over to the forensic laboratory. Up forensic laboratory is one. Police is lakhs of officers all over the country. There are only 6 central forensic science laboratories in the whole country, by the way. Every state has one laboratory, definitely, forensic science. Some may not even have the cyber function at all. ये भी होता है. So what happens is that they are overburdened, overworked a lot, and for them each case, what happens that the police is also not very aware. So they will do what Lord Hanuman did when he had to get the Sanjeevani booty. They will bring the whole mountain. If there are 86 computers there will be 86 computers dumped on the forensic science laboratory. They will say, "Saab, isme se evidence nikal do." They will not even know what is the evidence that they are supposed to take out. So now coming to what you guys can do to expedite the thing, if your evidence is involved or this thing is involved, you should make it easy for the police. Maybe if you have a working copy of the evidence that has been seized, you should identify what you feel is evidence that makes sense, and you can say, look, we have done a private analysis on this. This is something that we have found. You can confirm at your end if it exists or not. The forensic science laboratory will say, okay, I've got these 86 hard disks. Let me see these 3 here, which you are saying that has evidence, and bang. So that is one of the things that can help.
Right, sir. Got it. So I think we'll wrap it up here because I have more than 37 questions pending right now. And I think agar wo lene lage to sir agla session nahi denge hame. So let's just reserve sir for the next session, and I hope we'll have a session very soon. We'll keep troubling you, sir, and I think we should plan some workshop or something because this is a very important topic, and I think no one can do it better than you. And guys, I hope everyone has enjoyed, and everyone has been hooked to the webinar so much, sir, ki Charu is COVID positive. Still, she's sitting throughout.
Sorry to hear
And
that.
all have been asking questions.
I was wondering if she was well because she doesn't sound well. But get well soon, Charu.
Yeah, and I appreciate everyone's questions, everyone's energy, and sir, thank you so much. And Arvind sir, with your closing remarks, we'll close the session. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
I have no closing remarks, Raghav, because of the fact that he's covered everything, and having seen him from close quarters, I knew how exciting this could be. It took me some time to convince you. It took me some time to convince him. But yeah, I think it worked out well, and I'm really glad to see a number of people who we had over 40 people at one point, so which is fantastic. But thank you so very much to Raghav and to Samir for sort of doing this, and as usual ended up learning a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
Thanks
we
for
had
having me here.
Yeah.
We had a football of 112 actually, sir.
Oh,
Just
okay.
take the data on the screen. Yeah, it was great, sir. And also, sir, one last question. People are asking if they'll get your PPT, if they can get hands on that.
No problem. I'll share it.
All right, I'll coordinate with you. Thank you so much, sir. And everyone, we'll see you next Saturday for cyber laws program. Sunday, sorry. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Raghav.
Rest of the Sunday.
Thanks, everybody.
If not well, including Charu, get well soon.
Get well soon. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.